Born and raised in Copenhagen, René Redzepi enrolled in culinary school at 15, followed by jobs in numerous Michelin-starred restaurants. After a brief tenure working under Thomas Keller at the French Laundry, Redzepi moved back to Copenhagen in 2004, and at 26 years old, opened Noma, which was named the world's best restaurant 5 times. René is credited with defining the new Nordic movement, which highlights hyper-local and sustainable ingredients. Last year, René announced that after 2 decades, Noma will stop regular dining in the winter of 2024, and then next year, Noma will be reinvented as a food lab. Before we get into your television series, which is why we're here, tell me a little bit about how you came to this decision to close Noma, why you decided to do it, and tell me a little bit about the food lab.
Do I press? No, I don't. In order to understand why we made that decision, we have to go a little bit back in time to sort of the beginning of Noma. We opened actually in 2003, not 2004. It was a time when dining out, food in general in the Scandinavian region, was available, but not fantastic. And we opened in dead of winter, promising to use more local foodstuffs, having no idea what it was, honestly. And we opened November 23rd, the dead of winter in Scandinavia. Terrible time to open up. But this sort of a search for ingredient and a dreadful long winter made us step into the landscape, into the wilderness at first. And we found flavors and ingredients that we never knew existed right beneath our feet. So that was the first exploration of cooking for us, and it sort of defined us ever since. You know, it fueled a curiosity. You got a new curiosity for the natural world. And with that also came success. With the findings of these foodstuffs, it also sort of dictated how we cooked. And that was suddenly a signature way of doing things. And success was incredible. It took like 7 years, then we were like #1 in the world, according to the magazine there. And we went from having almost empty lunch every day to complete empty dinners on a Monday to 100,000 people requesting tables in 24 hours. And these are 100,000 requests, you know, of tables of 2, 6, 8, 10. It was mind-blowing. And so it was amazing to be full, but it was also problematic. Success in that sense was very limiting, suddenly, creatively. We started protecting the success. We started focusing on the things that worked, as opposed to do what we'd done before, which was just play around as if we have nothing to lose, not caring about it. And suddenly, you know, 7, 8, 9 years into this, I felt the need for a change, because seemingly everything we told ourselves every day, change it up, change it up. We kept going back to what we knew worked. And so we decided to close Noma 1 and go into Noma 2, which was move the restaurant 2 kilometers away to see if that would do something. And then when we moved over, when it was time to move, like a year before, I got worried that what if we just moved and did the exactly same thing? And that's when we started doing the pop-ups, where we took our entire team. The first one we did was we went to Tokyo. And the rule was, we go 100 people, close the restaurant in Copenhagen, put up everyone in Tokyo, housing, the kids in schools, daycare, everything, like the circus going to town. And we could not cook with anything we know. And we have to, you know, spend a year on actually doing the research, and I had so many researchers. We hired a local crew. It was fantastic. It fueled a new energy. We opened up the new Noma with 3 distinct seasons from that experience. In the summer, we only serve vegetables, because that's what's in abundance. When the leaves fall from the trees, then we only serve wild foods. And then in the dead of winter, when nothing grows, we go to the ocean and serve seafood. And it was really fantastic for us. It fueled a new kind of creativity for us. And then the pandemic happened. And for the first time, there was a moment of reflection. And I just we're moving in on the 20 years of operation. It was going very well, more full than ever, and so on and so forth. But yet, when I was projecting 20 years into the future, thinking, and where are we 20 years from now, I could see that the creativity that had fueled us and the curiosity was still there, but it was not a sort of a well that keeps just filling itself. And we were all the time in production. We never had proper time to actually inspire ourselves. So that was a problem, and I knew that the funnest thing about my work is actually doing new things and taking part in food where you're kind of inventing the future. Besides that, our team was growing. I have 3 kids myself. They are older now, but everyone else around me was having kids. We are very, very lucky to have so many people that work for a long time. There's three of us of the 7 original that are still there 21 years later. But everyone else was kind of having kids, and you grow up as an organization, and I thought to myself, can these people thrive working like this for a lifetime? I could see that was not going to happen. And at the same time, the restaurant industry is notoriously also known for low pays, and it is. And that was also an issue. And then I thought to myself, operating as a restaurant, having that be our only way of funding us is a stupid way of doing this. So we've envisioned a new model where we're going to spend our network, our team, 21 years of experience of having a food lab here, a test fermentation lab here, and a foraging unit, and so on and so forth, on creating new and broader, bigger projects for food, in food, that has a bigger impact. And then once in a while, we'll open up and we will test our work for an audience. So restaurant work will in the future be where we have fun, or our hobby, as opposed to we need to stay open and we need more guests in or else we can't pay the bills, you know. So we're envisioning a new financial model to set ourselves creatively free, and also to create an organization that's going to be at the cutting edge of food innovation and flavor for a lifetime.
You sound excited about this.
I am. I really, really am. I think restaurants are a notoriously difficult place to be in. Everyone in this room knows this. And when you see a different way, and you understand that for most part, restaurants, they're just restaurants. They're operating, and it's full of young people. Most of the time, there will be an owner or maybe a manager that's more than 40. The rest are probably younger than 30. It's sort of a giant meat grinder of people that come in. And then at a certain point, they're like, oh, I can't live like this. So in order to have a different financial setup, so you can create an organization that can actually really thrive, you need to think differently beyond just having guests every night. Because if you were to charge what it really needed to be, and I'm not just talking about Noma, it's at your local diner, it's even your Snickers bar or your Mars bar. If you were really to charge what was necessary for it to be, let's call it a sustainable business, when it would be a lot more. I mean, your Mars bar, if the peanuts, I mean, who knows? It could be a tree and not a person, or a lake that takes a toll, because we have to have these things cheaper and cheaper.
Which is a good transition to your show and
Yes.
to Omnivore.
Mm-hmm.
I sat down to watch this last week. I thought I'd watch an episode or two, and I spent 8 hours on my couch.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that.
It's really spectacular. It's really smart. It has real depth. You learn something. There are human beings in there that you root for, and a pig, by the way, that you root for.
Anton the
pig. But we're not gonna go there because I don't want to know what might have happened to him. This quote jumped out at me, and then I'm going to ask you to describe the series. I think this was toward the end of the Salt episode.
Mm-hmm.
Food is never just food. It's a mirror, a microscope, a roadmap. It's the story of who we are.
Yeah.
Describe the show to those that haven't seen it.
So the show started 10 years ago as an idea at a period where Noma was really blowing up, and I was being offered to do television shows, probably once a month. All sorts of things like, would you like to be the head judge of this competition show? Or one that was called Fire and Ice. And I was supposed to take celebrities out in cold areas of the world and cook for them over fire. And all sorts of things. And I always knew that if I was ever to do TV, it had to be something that I felt was more than just entertainment. We had to actually make an impact. And that's when this idea that, hey, my favorite TV show has always been Planet Earth. And as a child growing up, listening to David Attenborough, I was like, I felt at peace hearing his voice. So the idea was just, why can't we have that for food with that scope and that dedication and care, where also in today's energy in food media, we slow the pace a little bit and perhaps show a little bit more what is behind all our food, the everyday items, so that we get connected again to the stuff that we eat and get to understand where things come from and who are the people behind it, and what's the crazy journey of some of these things to actually reach our doorstep every day. Like we have an episode on coffee, which is mind-blowing, the coffee episode. It was super hard to actually make it because we were supposed to first be in Ethiopia, but there was a civil unrest and we couldn't go there. But we ended in Rwanda with with an incredible, fantastic person called Arthur Karuletwa, who spoke at we have a symposium in Copenhagen called Mad Symposium. And I mean, I won't say too much, but Arthur is an incredible personality, and you understand from the hills of Rwanda to your coffee shop in Brooklyn what's necessary for coffee to be there. It's mind-blowing. And it's once these coffee grounds hit this thing that you put in the machine, and 28 seconds later it's like it's chucked away, it's something. And then you also realize truly that, oh wow, it's a miracle that we can have cheap coffee and it can just be available everywhere all the time.
So the series picks one proper noun from the food world and really explores it. The history, the anthropology, the politics. It's just the whole story of humanity through this one thing.
Yeah.
We mentioned the pig episode before. You just mentioned coffee. There was a salt episode. The 8 were the chili, tuna, salt, banana, pig, rice, coffee, corn, and those are the episode titles.
Yeah.
And they're very self-explanatory. How did you come up with those 8 as the first? And by the way, I'm assuming there'll be more seasons of this.
We hope so,
Yeah.
but that's out of our hands.
Yeah.
That's totally up in
There will be.
Apple TV Plus.
No, there will be. Yeah.
They're sitting in the back,
Yeah.
so we're hoping.
Just do it.
No, I would really love to make more because it's been an incredible journey, and writing, figuring out what 8 episodes were to be was coming down from 100, because you can go into your local supermarket or your Walmart or whatever, and you can look at 1,000 different episodes. Each of them have an incredible story to tell, either through history or through an individual that's sort of lost in time, and we need to know about how that person influenced the very thing that we eat or drink every day. But we chose those ones specifically because we could have had only large world staples like wheat and sugar and potato and corn and so on. But we thought it would be a little bit too one note. By the way, Matt Golding, if you might want to stand up and just say hello. This is Matt Golding. He's a co-creator of the show here. And
one of the writing on the show is spectacular.
Yeah.
Really, really
And
great.
Matt is a journalist, written several books, also ran Roads and Kingdoms, an online platform. And we've worked a lot on this. There's also Ben Liebman in the back who helped put all this together. And Devin is also there, who was also part of the show from day one. We should mention all these. Yeah, so all of us, including also the team at Apple TV Plus, we sort of went together and see, okay, how could we tell some of these different stories and have different outcomes? So isn't just here's a story of an ingredient, how it changed the world, and here's where it started, and here's the problems with it along the way, and here's where it is today. It could easily have been that, all of them. But when we look at, let's say, something like the Chile episode, did you like that one?
I did, and while I was watching it, I ordered Thai food.
Okay.
I literally this kept happening to me watching this series. I was like, "Fuck! Now I want sushi." But anyway, it was a great episode. Yeah, and that's the first episode.
Yeah, the first episode is for each of the episodes we have like a sort of a hook or a theme, a very simple phrase, and this one is love, and our love affair with Chile. It doesn't hold any caloric value. It's not like an empire builder or an empire changer. We're the only species on Earth that eats it for the love of seasoning and what it does to us, and that's just for love, you know. And it's a mind-blowing story of a pepper that first starts as a seed and brought around the region through the birds. And then, of course, the Portuguese brings it all around the world, and it ends up defining the food of nations. Like, could you imagine Thai food without chilies? Impossible. And so that one is about love. And for instance, with the pig, which takes place, the only episode that takes place in a singular place on Earth.
That was my favorite episode, by the way.
Cool.
I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah. But we follow our pig called Arthur because Anton, sorry. And then, before that, we asked ourselves, if pigs could tell us something, what would they say? What would they tell us?
Please don't eat me.
Who knows? But that was kind of the question. Is like, dear pig, how are you? That was the mantra. And it just defines how you build, because you want to get to know this pig. And you actually do.
And yeah, I mean, that episode, it tells the story of this town and its people through this pig, and it's really beautiful. But this is important, I think, for the series also, is the people. Mm-hmm. I mean, the people that populate these towns, the people that make the cayenne, not the cayenne pepper, the paprika,
mm-hmm.
the people like
Serbia.
The human stories and the towns and the small towns and the history and the tradition of just what food is and what food means to us. And I thought it was really beautiful. And you found really great people to follow, and a pig. But we'll stop talking about the pig. Okay, let me get to Eric's question, because Eric is not here because of COVID, but he's here in spirit. In your opinion, what ingredient has had the most impact or influence on humankind and ultimately world history? It's a really easy one. I mean, come on.
Can somebody kick him in the balls, please, for me?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Maybe just pick one. Like, we don't have to say it's the ultimate.
I mean, if maybe it's not an ingredient, rather it's an instrument. The plow. The plow.
That's right.
Changed us completely. That and first fire. Once we start cooking food, we actually became humans, like the leader of Earth, if we will, because we released all these nutrients and we didn't have to sit around a fire chewing food, or on the ground chewing food half the day. So fire first, and then the plow was hugely instrumental. But you could also argue wheat, you could argue corn if you're other parts of the world, or rice. Those are the three main ones. Salt, the way that salt has made food preserves and saved billions of people for harsh winters. I don't know, Matt. What do you say?
It's an impossible question. I mean, he totally stitched you up on this one.
No, I would say, screw you, Ripper. That's a terrible question, first and foremost. But I would say salt, for me personally. I mean, I think we originally got into... I'll stand up just to make it less awkward. When we first built the salt episode, the little internal mantra was the history of us. The history of salt is the history of us. And if you look at the world of salt and how it has informed human history, you get every building block of what it means to be a human. You get economic shifts, you get political changes, you get the biological piece of our necessity for this element, and you get these radical transformations in human technology, in innovation. Globalization begins with the search for spice and for salt, and it continues on today with the search for bluefin tuna, which is what that episode is ultimately about. So for us, or for me personally, salt was always this kind of foundational microcosm of the series as a whole. Look at the history of us, and you'll see it in all these ingredients, but look at the history of salt, and you'll find all of it inside that one grain. So that would be...
Plus, you get that adorable kimchi song that you guys have in the salt episode.
Kimchi,
it's great.
da.
Thank you for that. I'm going to ask you some fun questions now, and then we can take a few questions from the audience if anyone has any. If you could blast one album in the Noma kitchen for the rest of your career and nothing else, what would it be? That's a shitty question to do to you too, I know.
No, because we are people from 16 different nations right now working at the restaurant, I would say it would be sort of, what would make people the most happy would be like a cumbia or something. There's a Los Angeles band right now that makes a modern version of it, call it La Lom. I think they would bring the vibe to everyone.
You could have just said The Clash London Calling and I would have been thrilled. But
I mean, in the old days it would have been Metallica. In the old days. But we were also more Northern Europeans. That would have been Metallica for sure.
You love your metal. You love your dark
I love a lot
metal
of things, but Metallica was always very good to work with when you're busy.
Gets you going. What's the hardest thing to cook? Or what is the one thing that took you the longest to master?
I really don't even think I've learned how to properly master anything yet. But the simplest...
That's a total dodge, by the way.
No, but the simplest of things are often the most difficult. Anyone who bakes bread knows that these things are so temperamental. One day it's perfect, next day it's the same thing, but it's not so perfect. And what happened? Was there a gust of wind that suddenly blew on your dough and suddenly it didn't rise properly? Those are the things that are the most difficult to make, in my opinion. I think cooking steak or blanching vegetables or learning how to slice and use your knives, those you can do, but those things are like, it's invisible, it's feeling. Those are the most difficult things.
You're wearing a Jonathan Gold t-shirt, so I have to ask you about restaurant criticism and food writing.
You were going in on this one too.
Do you think restaurant criticism has lost its power, or do you still think it plays a role? And I'm talking about writing.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about bullshit TikTok videos and stuff. We'll get there in a second. But do you think do you think it's sort of lost its power?
What do you think?
I do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, of course, there's been gigantic change in the way that that information is distributed. We at Noma, we were lucky. We were at the beginning of this explosion of information. And when we first opened, you would have, I don't know, Bon Appetit come to Noma, and somebody would eat, and they would like it, and then there would, 6 months later, there would be a photographer, and then next fall, it would be in the magazine. It was like a 1.5-year cycle. And then overnight, seemingly, people picked up the phone and they started broadcasting. And the internet, and there was no secrets anymore. And I mean, we were lucky because it helped us blow up. But if you're asking me if we in Northern Europe have any food critic that can set a restaurant off, that doesn't exist anymore. That's gone.
Do you think?
Well, it used to be that. You used to have critics, if you got a good review in the main daily, like a Politiken, sort of the New York Times of Denmark, you'd be full for minimum a year, like completely full. That's gone. Now you don't even get full for the weekend. It's strange. There will be some places or some certain demographic of people, like there's an online critic It's actually two women. They're called the Two Hungry Women, and they're young. They do put it all up on TikTok. People love it. When they love something, that place is full, like really full.
So that takes me to my next question, and the word foodfluencer, which I just disturbs me. But do you think the rise of the foodfluencer and social media has been a good thing for restaurants in the food world? And we talked a little bit about this before. Do you think this has been a good thing, or do you think it's been a bad thing ultimately?
I think right now it's problematic. If I could wish for something, it would be like opening hours for social media, like from 9 to 5, closed in the weekends. Kind of like what the New York Stock Exchange, they close at because, or else there's panic. They need order. We also need to take a break, and for that reason, it's just everyone is so busy, constantly feeding a beast that's hungry and hungry. The more we feed it, the bigger it grows, and the more it needs. And so there's just so much stuff, and it's a lot of it is problematic. It's not done well. But there's also parts of it that's fantastic. We can't deny that, There's parts of it that's amazing. If we could just slow it down a little bit, but that's, of course, impossible. So there's not a clear answer on this one. I don't know. What use can we have? Matt used to be a food critic, too. You want to say anything?
I mean, the word foodfluencer is probably the worst new word to be invented in a very long time. No. I mean, I think one of the things that the series tries to deal with is the power of the human appetite to change the physical world around us. And in the episode of Tuna, we see that we looked at this fish kind of as a trash fish for most of the 20th century, and then the Japanese gave it a certain value, and that value became the sushi economy, and suddenly this fish that was literally being buried in mass graves off the east coast of the United States in the 1950s and 60s was being flown overnight to Tokyo to be sold at auction. And that species then was pushed to the brink of extinction. And overnight, something that was an apex predator that was absolutely, one of the kings of the sea, or so to speak, was suddenly almost vanished entirely. A few small changes and smart policy has brought this fish back. But it's a reminder of just that power of a single ingredient, kale. The explosion of kale 10 years or 15 years ago changed the landscape of California, right? Explosion of almond milk, or the newest, these things all dramatically alter lives and landscapes and the way that we occupy this world. And so when you apply that to social media, and suddenly you're looking at a rainbow bagel because it's really pretty, or you're looking at the certain kind of construction of a dish, and suddenly everyone is gravitating towards that. I think there's some pretty nefarious outcomes if you follow that trail all the way down. And so I think that anything that exacerbates the singular focus of the human appetite is ultimately for the worse.
Definitive, I like it. René, last question.
Yep.
You're on death row for murdering a foodfluencer, and it's time for your last meal. What is it?
My last meal. So, can I explain this in a lengthy way?
Sure.
Yeah. Because the reason why I'm a cook was I left 9th grade. I went into cooking school at 15, and I am at school. I am asked to take part of this competition, cook something you like, and I end up cooking a roast chicken because as I'm in the library looking for recipes, there's roast chicken there, and I have a moment where I'm taking back my family Albanians, and taking back to the ex-Yugoslavia. So I'm born in Denmark, but I'm raised in Denmark and in ex-Yugoslavia, in an Albanian community there. And I'm taken back to this dusty old courtyard. No refrigerators, electricity was like a light switch. And my auntie, she's plucking a chicken and roasting it in a wood-fired oven with a pan of rice underneath. I had that flash. And then 19 years ago, I meet Nadine Levy, now Redzepi, and she cooks the most incredible roast chicken by chance. And she's raised with roast chicken.
Freud would say differently, by the way. But just,
So roast chicken for me is would be, but it has to be crispy skin, like my wife does it, marinated in lemon juice for half an hour. It tightens up the skin. Salt, olive oil, in a hot oven. Turn it down the last 20 minutes so that the meat sort of settles.
wow, I'm suddenly hungry. The show Omnivore, it's really spectacular. It begins Friday, I believe, right?
Yes.
And all 8 episodes will be on
All
Friday?
8 episodes on Apple TV Plus. Please watch it and
Yeah,
tell all your friends.
Excellent. Renee, thank you and best of
Thank
luck.
you for having me. Thank you so much.